episode 45 now.
Fuck yeah. Let me ask you a question. Do you remember your first ever doctor? His name? You remember his name?
Dr. Brown,
Alright.
Lakeside.
Why? Right, before you answer, right?
He was Indian.
No. That's not why.
Why?
It's because it's the first person to touch your penis.
Fucking hell, mate. I mean, I don't remember him touching my penis, so I wouldn't.
He did.
I suppose, yeah. I mean,
because I remember my doctor. I remember his name. The only reason why is because he's the first doctor to pull my foreskin back. He was checking for. I don't know what he was checking for, but he was obviously doing his job. Like, I'm not saying this man was a nonce. I'm just saying that's why we remember his name. Maybe you remember him because he was Indian, but
look, I mean, it's kind of like a child's way of basic association. It's like, oh, because Corby's back in the 90s wasn't particularly metropolitan. It really isn't now. I mean, you've got a lot more people living in London, but it was basically a kind of a white, lower working class kind of town. A lot of Scottish, a lot of Irish, but predominantly Caucasian people.
When was it like the Polish boom then? When was that?
So, from what I know, Tony Blair gets into power in 1997, and he's a what he calls I don't know what the technical term is, a Europhile. So he was pushing all the policies that helped integrate the UK more into the European Union.
Right, okay.
So he was doing all these shady deals that involved European countries, and obviously because of I don't know because it's been because of Brexit and all that. A lot of the stuff I used to know about the European Union sort of faded from my head. But people,
free trade, is that what you're trying to say? Like,
well, free trade's one of them. But when it comes to people in different countries, can just like before Brexit, well, before the whole Brexit thing kind of kicked in properly, which was like 2019, 2020, I could go live in France without any paperwork. I didn't need it, just a passport. I was a British citizen.
Well, you wouldn't need a visa or anything.
No visas
now
needed.
Do we need a visa to live in France? Really?
Yeah.
Is that fucked up?
So Tony Blair pushed all that stuff in, and then people from Poland, people from Latvia, and don't forget, like after the fall of the Soviet Union, there were nations that became sovereign nations.
Georgia.
Yeah, that was one of them, but I don't think that's part of the European Union.
No.
So places like
a lot of them are not, are they?
Yugoslavia,
Belarus, stuff like that, they're not part of the European Union.
I
Even
think
Ukraine, that's why it's so.
That's different. That's NATO. So don't get NATO confused with the European Union. They're two different things.
Right. Okay.
Because Latvia is part of the European Union and it's in NATO. Belarus, I think, but definitely Lithuania is part of the European Union.
Right.
But to answer your question, I mean, I don't know the actual 100% answer. I can kind of like guess around it based on things that I do know, things that I kind of remember.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so there was a whole thing that went down in Kosovo, I want to say, in the late 90s. I don't know.
Yugoslavia region.
Yeah, so Yugoslavia fell and became Slovakia, and can't remember the other country. No, not Slovakia. Sorry, Serbia, and another country like Czechoslovakia became Czech Republic, and Slovakia.
Yeah.
Give you an example, because once the Iron Curtain fell, once the USSR failed, there was these other countries that became part of, quote unquote democratic, sovereign nations. Well, here's an interesting thing for you. It's a little bit of a tangent, right? But I was looking into this the other day, right? And sometimes I like to brush up on things. So during the whole Cold War era, there was a lot of showboating going on. There was a lot of, dick measuring contests, the space race. So I was just brushing over on some things, and there was a whole space race thing that happened between the Soviet Union and America. But another interesting thing as well was digging the deepest man-made hole ever made. And one of them, it started in 1970. It was in Soviet Russia at the time, and it was right on the border, bordering with Finland and Norway, I want to say, because right north of Russia's humongous. And so it started in 1970, and it went on up. It didn't stop until, it stopped a few times, but it officially stopped in 1995, and this thing got to 12 kilometers deep.
They stopped digging the hole in 1995?
It ran out of funding in 1995, and this is a few years after the fall of the Soviet Union, and it got to 12 kilometers deep. because they didn't even make it to the mantle, because below the crust is the mantle, and I think it was about 30, I want to guess and say about 30, 40 miles deep. But once it got to 12 kilometers deep, the estimations of how hot it was going to be was insane. Like apparently it was like trying to dig through plastic. The drills just would not work.
What were they trying to prove?
I don't know. I think they were just trying to do research on like the Earth's mantle and the crust, and just pure human curiosity. I mean, how many times as a child have you...
So it was just technically like a science experiment. Like, how far can we go?
Basically, because I remember as a kid, I had an Auntie Betty. Her name was, it was actually my mum's auntie. We went around her house one time with these kids. I don't even know if I was related to these kids or not. And we just decided there was this patch of soil in our back garden. We just started fucking digging. And we dug about 4 feet. And when she came out, she lost her mind. I don't know what she was growing, but she was pretty upset. We just trashed her soil patch.
I mean, but it's a kid thing, isn't it? Like, you get together as a group of friends and do some stupid shit that you think's fun, and then an adult will come and tell you off for it. That's how you learn, isn't it?
Well, I got away with it because I was just leaving with my mum, and then she came out, and my mum's like, "Come along, Daniel, let's go." And I look back and I'm like, well, we really fucked up that woman's soil patch. But it's that childlike ego state of curiosity. We have this curiosity about the world around us, our reality. We think, oh, how can we, can we dig to... It always makes me laugh when they say, oh, if you dig a hole deep enough, you end up in China. But they say that in America and they say that in Britain.
Ain't it from America, dig down, you get to Australia?
I don't know. Not if the Earth's flat. No, I'm joking.
You just walk in a straight line, you get to Australia, wouldn't you?
But it's that human curiosity. And so this... Kool super deep borehole, there was this rumor going around. I think it was like a newspaper in Finland that picked this up, where they put a microphone down this hole, and it sounded like, you can go on YouTube now and still find this to this day. It is known as the sounds of hell. And I listened to this video and I was like, it does sound like people screaming, but there's a problem. Like, any sound engineer or anyone with a little bit of experience with audio and all that would say, or geography or whatever it is, would say, oh, that's the pressure. That's that sound, because it sounds like a really heavy wind, like being condensed. It's like,
I can't imagine the microphone they used was like top tier, was it? Right?
Well, I don't know, but it was. And anyways, you can go to this place even to this day, but it's been welded shut.
Right.
And but the record has since been beaten. There's like a mine shaft in Qatar or in Dubai. I want to say it might be Qatar, but it's about 300 feet deeper. And it's an oil thing. But it was interesting things, because you look at the space race, right? So after, there was a thing known as Operation Paperclip. So towards the end of World War II, you had the Americans coming from one side, you had the English coming from another, the French and the Soviets, and they were closing in on Berlin. And apparently it was just mayhem. It was literally, if the guy in front of you died, you just picked up his gun and just kept shooting, because every country was pretty much bankrupt by this point. Except for America, they seemed to do really well after World War II. You look at the boom that they went through. They fucking needed that war. I know that's a controversial thing to say, but it's true. And
they weren't going to get involved at all till what happened.
Pearl Harbor,
yeah.
1941, December of 1941. Because most people in America were like, why are we fighting Europe's war? We don't give a shit. Pearl Harbor happens, and then suddenly, a bit like with 9/11, when Bush had been in power, not even 1 year, about 10 months he'd been in power. He got inaugurated into January of 2000, and it was so close between him and Al Gore. Al Gore was the Democrat candidate, and it got right down to Florida.
Man, bear, pig.
Yeah, another reference, Al Gore. And it got down to like 500 votes in Florida. They had to do a recount in Florida state. And eventually it stopped, and Bush, won the election.
It's a fix. It's a fake vote. Sit down. Call back.
And he was just so unpopular, because everyone just looked at
Bush or Al
Bush.
Gore?
No, Al Gore. I think Al Gore was popular, but Bush was not
we were
popular.
At that age where
we didn't know.
I wasn't in. Now when the American votes and that kick off, I get into it a little bit. Like, I'm interested. But back then I wouldn't give a fuck.
I didn't give a fuck either.
We would have been, 8 years old
in 2000.
Wouldn't have given a shit, mate. I just wanted to fucking play fake wrestling. You know what I mean? Go out with my friends and that. That's what you care about when you're that age, isn't it?
Well, so
sorry, carry on before we go off on a tangent.
So 10 months into his presidency, his approval rating is pretty low. Him and Dick Cheney's. 9/11 happens.
He's the vice president.
He was the vice president. Yeah. There's a film I recommend you watch called Vice, starring Christian Bale. I mean,
I've seen it.
Very good.
Very good film.
Whether it's accurate or not, it's a great film.
Yeah, so sometimes it doesn't have to be a great film,
No.
you know.
It's great. It's a good film, and Bush does a speech about the war, announcing the war on terror or something along those lines. I haven't really seen the speech, and his approval rating just fucking soars. Patriotism soars, and I can't quite remember where I was going with this, but I was making a connection between
Paperclip. Why America got involved in World War II.
Yeah, how opinions can just change like that. So I'm kind of booming, so I just want to be careful. I'm still kind of new to this, so bear with me.
People can turn down the volume.
You can turn down the
volume button.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Daniel.
I apologize for the pops. It's my voice. I'm very emphatic. So Operation Paperclip, right? So America and the Soviet Union and British and the French kind of take control of Germany, and it gets split in half by the Soviet end, and West Germany kind of takes back control of itself. And Operation Paperclip was basically taking the scientists from either side. So the Soviets were taking some of the German scientists, and the Americans were taking some of the German scientists, because the Nazis were amazing at rocket propellant technology or something along those lines.
Yeah, they had.
Because the next thing that people were focused on after World War II was breaking the sound barrier. So what they'd done was they got Spitfires, and they just kept jacking them up to the point where they could beat the sound barrier, and the British and the Americans were competing with one another on this. And they found that once they broke the sound barrier, all the controls in the Spitfire just lost control. They couldn't control it, so they had to figure out what to do with it. I don't know the technical terms. I'm not really that well clued up on aviation. But they figured something out with the mechanisms to stop the controls from jamming up. And then before you know it, you got Concorde coming out 1969, the same day the internet came out. Not officially came out, but the first time an email or message being sent via internet.
That British guy.
Well, so what he wanted to do was he sent a message that said log on, and it froze halfway through. So that's where log on comes from. It was the first ever message sent via internet in 1969.
Because, right, silly story, but do you remember the 2012 opening, and they brought out like loads of British,
all sorts of things, wasn't it? Yeah,
British culture, and they brought that dude out just to stand there like.
Do you remember in 2008 when? Pardon me, about there, and the chair saved me. Do you remember in 2008? Because what they do with the Olympics is they have the country that will be hosting the next Olympics kind of show off their culture a little bit. So in Beijing in 2008, you had Boris Johnson, because he was mayor at the time of London, coming in on that double-decker bus with his little floppy hair.
Yeah,
and everyone's just like face
we went down the zip line.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh mate. Oh, fuck, you know, and he's Prime Minister now. What the fuck? What? Anyway.
So moving on from Operation Paperclip, we start seeing the space race. It's like who can get to space first, and the Soviets did it first.
Is this what led into the Cold War?
No, the Cold War the Cold War was to do with nuclear arms. So obviously you had the Manhattan Project. So Albert Einstein, a bunch of other people, Oppenheimer, I think his name was. There was a whole bunch of people that were very, very smart people, physicists and all that.
I know Joe Rogan used to always go on about this, but
Operation Paperclip.
That speech Oppenheimer does. Is it Oppenheimer that does the speech? Because he regrets making it.
Yeah,
and he does that speech, and it's so fucking powerful, man. Like if you watch the speech, it's fucking powerful. Everyone should watch that speech.
Well, the next Christopher Nolan movie that's coming out is based on Oppenheimer. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but that's gonna be the next Christopher Nolan movie. So
hopefully it's not in reverse.
They come up with hopefully it's like a linear plot.
Yeah.
Hopefully, like it has a beginning and a middle and an end. Don't get me wrong, like I do really appreciate. I was actually watching a bit of I'm happy to talk about Christopher Nolan stuff later on. So remind me.
Yeah, man.
So 1945, America gets its brand new toy, which is the hydrogen bomb.
When? 45?
1945, and the Nazis have surrendered, but the Japanese hadn't yet. And they
were stubborn motherfuckers, weren't they? They were stubborn.
Yeah, so the Japanese are taking control of most of this Southeast Asian Gulf. I don't know the name of the Gulf, but we're talking like they took control of Vietnam, and that sort of led to the Vietnam conflict that followed from 1950, well, pretty much from 1945, and then it really escalated in the 60s and ended in 73, 75. So, just trying to think where we're going with this, because there's so many different points. Because obviously I'm going to lead on to the space race and all that. But yeah, so they dropped the hydrogen bombs, 2 of them. That they were going to drop 9 initially on Japan.
Or just fucking wipe Japan out.
Just every major city in Japan. It was meant to be 9, right? So they had little boy and big boy, and there was an interview, I think, from the guy who was with who was the pilot of one of the planes that dropped where it was little boy, because the first one was Hiroshima, and then the second one was Nagasaki.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was August of 1945, and they dropped the bomb, and it didn't even, because initially when I learned this in history, I just assumed that it just vaporized everyone within like a 8-mile radius, because you see pictures of it in history textbooks, and you just see like black shadows
on the stairs and that.
But then you read the book, The Controversial Decision, which then got made into a documentary narrated by John Hurt, and a lot of people didn't get vaporized. A lot of people just got badly burned and fucked up. And
well, yeah, that's the thing about bombs. If you're not in the impact zone, you're just gonna get like burnt, radiation.
Yeah, like, and that's why it does that mushroom cloud, because all that hot air rises up. And
as well.
But here's this is really bad, but this always makes me kind of chuckle. The fact that a lot of people fled that survived, went to Nagasaki, and 3 days later, they're like, fuck it.
They're on the train there. Like,
whoever survived both bombings, I hope they did the lottery. Like, you know what? I think I'm gonna take my. I think
I'll take my chances.
I think the heavens are on my side on this one. I think
numbers on.
But leading up to the space race, so the Russians were the first ones to get up there, and there was a guy, I can't remember his full name, but his first name was Yuri
Gagarin.
Yes, thank you. This is why you're my fucking co-host. You just come in there, a little dark horse.
I remember things. It's just when I get a trigger, boom, I'll remember. You know.
I think it was it was either 1959 or 1961, but he was the first person to go into space, and because they'd sent probes up there beforehand, because obviously in the aftermath of Operation Paperclip, they kind of perfected rocket technology. Oh, and just to finish off with the whole hydrogen bomb thing, like that shit went down in Japan. Japan surrendered. Apparently, they surrendered already. They were going to surrender, but America just wanted to show the balls. But it depends, you know. I mean, there's
show off their cojones.
Yeah, it's like, look at this dick.
And you thought that one was big. Look at
some
this
dude
one.
in Nagasaki, like, oh no, not again. And then by 1949, the Soviets had hydrogen bomb. They had their first atomic bomb. So that's kind of what started.
Weren't they just chilling? I think I think I'm going a bit far ahead, but they moved their nuclear to Chile, close to America.
No, you think of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962.
Oh, yeah.
1961, 1962.
So that was nothing to do with Russia, no?
That was Soviet. Because basically, the Americans, this was during, just as John F. Kennedy had taken presidency, like literally months into his presidency.
And that Russian president was treating him like a bitch, wasn't he?
So what happened, no, but America's to blame as well, because their foreign policy, they were setting up a military base in Turkey, which is quite close to the USSR at that time. And they were like, well, fuck you, we're gonna put nuclear weapons in Cuba, which is 90 miles away from the coast of Florida.
Do you know what, mate? Out of any documentary, that interests me the most. Yeah. How like
13 days of absolute terror.
Yeah.
And my uncle Brian, he was about 5 at the time when this happened, and he tells me he got home from school, and my granny was listening to the radio, and she told all the kids, because my mum hadn't been born yet, and so the 3 kids had been born by this point, and they all got into the kitchen. They just huddled together, thinking they were going to die. And I was told by my cousin Tony that they had agreed amongst themselves that if there was a nuclear war in the aftermath of this Cuban Missile Crisis, they were just going to go out hand in hand as a family and die together. It's pretty morbid, isn't it?
It's pretty dark, bro.
I know. I don't mean to bring down the tone. I just thought I'd tell you that bit.
Try and survive. Like, my mum was like, no offense, mum, if you're watching, but if you were like, come on, Dean, come on, Sean, let's all go hand in hand and take the blast. I'd be like, fuck you, I'm going to the basement.
Come along, James. Come on, James.
Mum, fuck you, mum. I'd fucking boom.
Yeah, come on, Jaffa. Come on, Leia.
Yeah, and I'd take everyone down to the basement. Like, why would you? No offense.
So apparently, if there is ever a nuclear war, you can't. It's one of the advice is go to like the stairwell of your house. Go to the stairs, because apparently the middle part of it. I think it's a load of bullshit, mate. You're fucked one way or another.
You're fucked unless you're in an underground specific.
Yeah, all the socialites and the aristocrats of the world, like they've got their little deep bunkers, like in.
Yeah. Oh, Post Malone bought a mansion that's buried under, like, if nuclear war happened, he'd be safe in the mansion. Like, that's
Fair
fucking...
play,
If
fair
you had
play.
that amount of money, that's... What a great idea.
Mm.
Great idea. Honestly, because there's only one way in and one way out.
Mm.
Fucking great idea. If you're going to try and rob his house, there's no fucking windows or anything. You got to go through his door.
Not even a nuclear bomb can get through.
That's exactly crazy, isn't it? Like,
Bomb
what a
proof. Literally
genius
bomb proof.
idea, man. Genius.
So just going back real quickly to that. So the whole Cold War thing, they call it a Cold War because it wasn't really technically an active war. There was a lot of proxy wars going on. So it's like the reason why it never fully escalated in Vietnam, because it was split between North Vietnam and South Vietnam. And if the Americans outright just went into North Vietnam, like boots on the ground, North Vietnam, it would have escalated with the Soviets and the Chinese, and it would have been World War III. So it couldn't. These were proxy wars. I'm not saying proxy wars are less than regular wars.
Is it kind of like what's going on now? Like we're like sanctioning Russia and doing all
It's
this
proxy
stuff,
wars, and
but
it's fourth generation warfare as well. So there's a lot of cyber stuff going on. There's a lot of propaganda going on. But I don't want to get too much into that just yet, because I've still got to do a lot of research. It's early days as well.
Yeah.
But because they call it a Cold War because it's not an active war outright. So
no one's fighting.
it was like a
just
it's
like indirecting someone on Facebook.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is that, you know,
Putting a status like "fuck you," but leaving the name out. You know,
something like that.
Yeah.
But
Just a basic example.
So it's a Cold War because, you know, the Soviets have got nuclear warheads. The Americans have got nuclear warheads. Most other countries.
They were just kind of like.
So it's a Cold War, and there's all these things that are happening, all these technological advancements, and then you have the space race, right? So Yuri Gagarin is the first human in space. They sent a dog out in space, but they couldn't bring it back. That was sad.
That made me quite sad.
Yeah, they fucked up on that one. I think they even sent a monkey up in space as well.
Yeah, they did.
So it's a space race going on.
They sent quite a lot of animals before they sent the human.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, this kind of got the Americans nervous because they're like, oh my god, they've made it into space now. This could be space warfare. It's like GoldenEye style. They could just start zapping us from low Earth orbit. And so this leads on, and then 1969, whether you want to believe it or not, that was the first time that we made it to the little grey rock, 239,000 miles away. It takes 1.1 light second to get there.
Okay, right. What do you believe then? Would you believe we did, or
50-50, right? I think it is doable, but I do think that it could have got it if enough minds are put together. I mean, but here's the thing, right? When I try and think about it technically, is you try and think all those technicians, all those engineers, but if people are just doing their job, because think about how most enterprises function. There's all these different departments just doing their job. And every time there's something going on that they're not too sure about, they'll just kind of that mentality of, oh, it's none of my business. I've seen that in jobs I've worked at where there's a sort of hierarchical structure. Mm-hmm. And most companies, businesses, enterprises consist of a hierarchical structure. It's very seldom that you'll get like what's called a flatarchy. A basic example, a classic example of a flatarchy is like old school. Who made Half-Life? Valve. That's a classic example of a flatarchy where there's no real leaders. Technically,
yeah,
it's
kind of just like, all in it together.
Kind of, it's changed a lot in recent years, but I think up until like 2011, 2013, I think
they've sold quite a lot. They're independent studios.
Yeah,
it's still Valve, but like they've got different.
But everything consists of a hierarchy, so we have to naturally assume that NASA operates under a hierarchy system. There's someone at the top, and there's people at the bottom, and they're all just doing their little jobs. So there's always that possibility that
is NASA government funded?
Yeah, it's government funded,
right?
And then you've got private enterprise and all that. So I like to think, of course, we went to the moon. That's amazing. It's like if you put enough brains together and you're willing to make time sacrifices, money sacrifices, if you have enough money to do it, time to do it, and you just put all your smartest people on it, you can get anything done, you know. But at the same time,
what if you get the smartest, greatest film director involved?
Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, I just generally believe we went to the moon. So maybe 10 years ago I was said to you like, I was a bit more conspiracy inclined. But
sorry, mate, you're a little bit lower than me. You are. That's why.
Right.
Don't worry too much about it. Yeah, but we just. Sorry, I'm just getting used to it.
But yeah, I believe we went to the moon. I do. I genuinely believe now we did.
And it'd be. I mean, what a great achievement, you know. I mean, amazing. But yeah, 10% benefit of the doubt. That.
But I don't know if you were the same. years ago I was more conspiracy open-minded.
There was a point in my life, I would say I was about 19 years of age,
But
where
you
I
got to
thought
think there's a difference between conspiracies and what
Truth-seeking.
this culture call now woke.
yeah,
There's a difference.
It's not woke, it's truth seeking.
Truth seeking, yeah.
Alter-
There's a difference, and I like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, when I was about 19 years old, I really started getting YouTube started to become this other thing, where you were starting to get long form documentaries, where people, like we were talking about at length on other podcasts, we talk about that prosumer revolution, where the consumer and the producer become the same thing. People had the means and the technology to do what we're doing now, film a thing, do a voiceover, get some clips together, upload it to YouTube, where it can be consumed by hundreds of millions of people. And you know, so 2011 you started to see the rise in that. So I was starting to watch a lot of these, you know, the moon landings were fake, and the way they'd articulate themselves was so convincing. I was like, holy shit. I remember being on the phone to my dad saying, Dad, I don't think we went to the moon. Because the one that changed my mind completely, like, I didn't give a shit about the flag, the shadows, the this, that, and the other. The one that got me is when these people would talk about the Van Allen belt. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's this radiation that goes around it's like a magnet if you look at a diagram. And so that initially, that's what made me think it didn't happen. I think we went to the moon. But this is what kind of changed my opinion briefly, was the whole idea of the Van Allen belt. You go through it, you need like lead. And I think someone from NASA explained it, like if you're going up into space, even if it's just low Earth orbit, like a bottle of water, that's $1,000, because you got to escape. You got to have enough velocity to escape Earth's gravitational pull, and this is $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to put lead in there to protect you from the radiation. At first I thought, oh my god, no. Oh yeah, it don't really make sense. But then other people would go on to explain that but they go through like a narrow part of it for a very brief amount of time. So I don't know.
We're not smart enough to know, I don't think.
No.
Do you know, that's what it boils down to with conspiracies as well. Sometimes you're not smart enough to fully comprehend it in your brain, so you think, oh no, that's not real. And I used to be a lot like that. So,
but going forward, as we go deeper into this whole space missions and all that, I'm just going to say, yeah, we went to the moon, you know, for the sake of this podcast, because, you know, I always leave 10% benefit of the doubt, just in case.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'll always leave 10% for that conspiracy mind.
Yeah, so that I don't want to be surprised. That's the thing.
Still fucking sexy.
Yeah, I don't want to be surprised. So if it does happen, like, well, yeah, I did give it 10%. So there you go. No surprises for me.
That's it, mate. Like, keep an open mind. That's all you got to do, innit? Keep an open mind.
Another interesting one was Apollo 13. You know, they did a film with it with Tom Hanks, Gary Sinise, Kevin Bacon. Mission? That was a failed mission. Yeah. So 1971, 72, something along those lines. And something had combusted, something had gone wrong. And then it was a few more missions after that they kind of retired the Apollo mission. And then they started focusing more towards the Space Shuttle. There was all these proposed ideas, because essentially it's kind of sad what happened with the Space Shuttle. So the original proposal was that the Space Shuttle was it was designed to go into low Earth orbit, and it was going to be like a freight line between Earth and low Earth orbit, and it was just going to be constant. Originally, the idea is that it was going to be 2 missions a week or something like that. Because
so they'll try to buy off more than they could chew, really.
Yeah, basically. And they got the funding for it, but they had to make it. But it was based on the back of on the promise that we're going to go twice a week or once a week. Like, it was going to be constant, putting things up there. And
that's the dumbest shit I've heard.
I appreciate the ambition. So when you get the Space Shuttle, right? So you've got the
these 1960s, 70s space engineer, they were ambitious as fuck, though. You got applaud the ambition. You know what I mean?
So you look at it like, so you've got the orbiter, which is the shuttle itself. Then you've got the external tank, which is the big orange one, and then you've got the solid rocket boosters either side of it, right? And the idea is that they would be the orbiter is reusable, which it is. I think the solid rocket boosters were reusable, so they would give it the extra power it needed to get up, and then it'd drop off, and they'd pick it up in the ocean and clean it out and fix it, and so it was meant to be a reusable spaceship. And obviously, for those who don't know, at the bottom of the shuttle is like this silicone ceramic tiles that protect it from entering the Earth's atmosphere. That's why it kind of comes in at an angle. Mm-hmm. And when they got the first space shuttle back, they started refurbishing it, and they realized the actual extent, like how fucking difficult it is to refurbish one of these
and like you
space
say,
shuttles.
like, lead's not cheap. So imagine having to go.
It wasn't lead; it was silicone, I think. But
the radiation belt.
I don't think the space shuttle ever went into that territory. It didn't. It didn't break the Van Allen belt. It was low Earth orbit. But I think the cost of refurbishing a space shuttle was pretty much on par, because it was meant to be a cheaper solution to disposable rockets going up and just disintegrating or whatever, being unusable after it's done. So that was what the promise was. We're gonna have these reusable spaceships going up and down twice a week, sorted. And when they actually got down and had to fix it, they're like, holy shit. So there was delay after delay after delay. And then because the bureaucrats working for NASA were so keen on keeping up with this leads to the Challenger disaster in 1986. I think it was January 22nd, 1986. I might be getting the date a little bit wrong by a few days. It was going to be the first civilian to be in space. Krista McAuliffe.
Christy Boner. No? Some dude.
That dude won my car.
Christy Boner.
You touch Christy Boner's who? They got the bins over them.
Fuck it out, dog.
Nice one.
Nice. So Challenger, anyway.
Challenger. So this horrific thing that happened in January 1986. Krista McAuliffe was a school teacher, and she'd like spent months and months and months. It was like there was so many people auditioning, and there was Krista McAuliffe, and there was his backup, and this backup was probably gutted initially when she's like, "Sorry, you didn't make the cut." It wasn't until January 22nd she's like,
"We hired a school teacher."
Yeah, it's not until January 22nd that the backup teacher's like, "You know what? I think I got the best end of this deal." Just watching it blow up 70 seconds into launch, she's like, "Thank you, God. Thank you for." Anyway, that's really bad. I'm a piece of shit person, and I accept that. That's fine. I don't care. So anyway, so what happened was
what makes us a piece of shit, man? Fucking.
So they're constantly rushing. There's constant delay after delay launching these shuttles. Right? I think there was like 4 in total. So you had the Challenger, Columbia, Atlantis. I think it was Atlantis, Endeavour. I think in total there was like 6, but obviously 2 of them were destroyed. Obviously, the first one being I might have put those clips too close together. My bad. But yeah, so the first was in 1986, and it was in January, right? And they launched from, I think it's Cape Kennedy or something like that in Florida. So Florida is naturally quite a warm place, but it was unusually cold on this year, and it was
a bizarre incident.
It was below temperatures recommended to launch this space shuttle, and there was this one engineer who said, "I'm not signing off on this. You cannot launch in these low temperatures." Yeah, so this engineer was like, "I'm not signing off on this. You cannot launch in these temperatures." But the bureaucrats up above him were so eager to launch, because the way they have these things, they have like certain windows. So if they didn't launch then, it wasn't going to be until like April, which was 4 months later, 3 months later. So they were just eager to try.
Anyway.
Yeah, and obviously because they're government funded, if they're not pleasing the higher ups, they're losing their funding, and they just wanted to keep the space shuttle. What do you call it? Not missions, but whatever. They want to keep this going, right? Keep getting their funding, and the superior, this engineer, signed off on it anyway. And the engineer to this day says, "I'm so happy I never signed off on this."
Right, he's a smart guy.
He's even wrote a book about it. I haven't read it, but I'll check it out.
Smart guy.
And so they launched in January, and it was freezing. Like in the documentary footage, you can see like icicles hanging from all the railings and all that.
Fucked up.
And it launches, and because of the cold weather, the O-ring doesn't seal properly, and you can actually see in additional footage like smoke pouring out of one of the solid rocket boosters. It gets 70 seconds into launch, and then one of the guys on the ground says to the astronaut, because there was 7 astronauts, including the teacher, in the orbiter, and he says, "Go with throttle up," and you can hear the fuzzy going with throttle up, and then the footage of the families crying, because don't forget, all the families at Krista McAuliffe's and all that family and all that are watching this, so it's a happy moment, this, that, and the other, watching this thing blow up 70 seconds after launch, and after it cleared the tower, and obviously, the school teacher that didn't make the cut, she's probably fucking thrilled.
Because you on there clap like, yes.
Well, it's a bit extreme, Sean, but Nah, I'm joking. I don't give a fuck.
No, I'm not. Me personally,
I know this teacher. The teacher's like,
yeah, fucking awesome fun. You piece of shit, motherfucker.
some of the engineers wanted it, like the ones that were concerned. They were like, just leave it a day. But the problem was is that they didn't want Krista McCullough teaching on the weekend, because the kids were watching this live in the classrooms, because it was a historical moment for America. They're like, oh my god, the first civilian to go into space, the first school teacher to go into space. You're going to teach.
Has a civilian been into space since?
Oh yeah, they had a school teacher go in like the
Jeff Bezos has been in space.
yeah, but they had a school teacher go in like the early 2000s. It might have been that teacher, the one that didn't make the cut, that finally made the cut.
Christy Boner. Christy Boner.
Shibby.
The rocket blows up. Shibby.
Do you know what's funny? My girlfriend's nickname is Shibby.
Why?
I can't remember, but that's like her email address and her username on like on the PlayStation 3. Shibby something. I don't know the number.
What,
but
she did that herself?
I don't know what that. I'll be watching.
You did that for her?
No. That was her nickname years before I'd met her. Shibby. Yeah, I'm gonna find out why.
Yeah, you need to ask her why.
I don't even think
that needs to be answered.
I'll be watching
and then see if she says,
I can.
It's because I look like Christy Boner from fucking Dude Was My Car. That's a keeper right there.
She don't look like her, but she's a beautiful woman.
Well, she might have looked.
Maybe.
I don't know. I can't really remember.
But
she had blonde hair and that, didn't she?
Oh, you were very drunk, and we'll get into that as well. So,
no.
just to kind of top off this whole space shuttle thing.
Go on. Mate, I love this shit. It might be boring to some people, but I fucking love talking about this shit. So, you're not boring me.
So, the irony, I think the term irony is correct in this, because obviously the bureaucrats were so obsessed. Because here's another messed up thing as well, right? So, people naturally assume that all 7 astronauts, including the teacher, died when that thing exploded, right? But then once they had to go do the cleanup operation, they found that 2 or 3 of the astronauts had actually gone for the additional oxygen, and they actually...
Wasn't there like evacuation pods or anything back there?
All right, so the story was when they first did the space shuttle, they actually had installed like ejector seats compartment, but to save on costs, they got rid of it. All right.
Fucking
I know, right?
Scumbags, man.
I know. So, save on costs. Killed 7 people, cunts.
Shibby.
So, anyway, so the irony is that they're pushing these bureaucrats to try and meet the deadlines and get the teacher out in space. But because of that, they had to wait 2.5 years before they launched the space shuttle again. So it was in 1988 that they launched again. And once it cleared the tower and all that, they were applauding each other. They made something like 200 modifications to the space shuttle in the aftermath of the Challenger disaster.
Damn right.
Damn right. No more teachers. All right, you're upsetting the kids.
No more teachers.
Not
Damn right. Fucking, that's the fucking. It's like a sequel, innit? The first one was shitty. You make the alterations.
One of the most impressive for me, anyway.
I guess the sequel of the first one's that shitty. Sorry.
One of the most impressive shuttle missions for me has to be. It was performed in 1992. So the Hubble telescope was launched, I want to say, in 1990, and it was one of the most state-of-the-art telescopes ever made. Mm-hmm. And they launch it, assemble it all together. But then there's a problem. One of the lenses is out. So all the images they're getting are blurry and out of focus. So they trained for like 10 months to get the astronauts, because I don't think the shuttle ever really went out this far in low Earth orbit. I think the Hubble was a little bit further out. So they trained like fuck for this. They get to the Hubble. They spent about 5 hours fixing the lenses, this, that, and the other. And then they did it. And all the images of the Hubble coming back post 1992 were clear and correct, and I'm really impressed by that, especially when they talk you through all the technical stuff.
The mission to go fix this telescope?
Yeah, in 1992. I was really impressed with that. So the second shuttle disaster was in 2003. It was the Columbia. Yeah, the Columbia. So
is that the one with like the pure horrifying audio? With like you can hear the astronauts go.
No. So there is footage out there of them about 8 minutes before they died. So what happened was the shuttle was going up, and like some foam padding from the external tank, the big orange thing, had come off, and had taken out a piece of the heat shield, the silicone heat shield I was telling you about earlier, that black part of the orbiter. And as it's entering the atmosphere, because the heat shield had been compromised, it just started breaking apart and burning up. And then you got footage of just like debris just fucking flying through, like home footage of the debris. And this is So what they did after
Was
that?
it on Kirsty some videos by any chance?
Yeah, question sports. So what happens next?
Matt Letizia, is he the one that's on it? Like,
I don't know.
is
I
he the
remember,
one, the Cockney one? What's his name? He's a cricketer.
No, I used to watch
Phil
it.
Tufnell.
I remember
Phil
watching it when it
Tuffers.
was Sue. What was her name?
Sue Barker?
Yeah, Sue Barker. That was
Sue
it.
Barker, yeah.
My dad used to watch it a lot as well when I was living with him. I remember question sport. Question. What was it
Oh
called?
yeah, we watched that a lot when we were younger. That and Nevermind the Buzzcocks.
That was a good one.
That was shit hot, man.
But
Do you know what? What was the original guy's name? Mark.
Can't remember. Alistair something or Mark.
He had glasses. Mark. Fuck. I'm
Mark.
sorry, because I love him. But the second one, Simon Amstel, he's underrated as the host.
Right.
Because he used to shred the fucking shit out of, like, just everyone and, like, get them to the brink of tears. But the celebrities would stay there for the paycheck and try and insult him back. But it was so fucking quippy. Like, instantly. But then, like, he got 3 seasons. Bill Murray? Not Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
Bill.
It's Groundhog Day again.
He was never on Nevermind the Buzzcocks. Imagine him as one of the fucking hosts. What was it? The guest fucking.
So, Bill Murray, what do you regret most? Garfield.
You know when they do the tune like do 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 do, and they have to guess what the tune is, and that Bill Murray doing that.
Yeah,
no, but anyway, sorry.
Let's get back to the space shuttle. You fucking
sorry, my bad.
So after that, their little they decided that by this point the space shuttle was pretty much done and dusted. There was so much outrage because of the failure rate. I don't know how many missions they had, but you compare 2 missions going wrong with everybody dying compared to the amount of missions. That's something like a 8% failure rate, and I think with planes it's something like 0.3%, less than that maybe, failure rate.
Really?
So the failure rate's pretty high. So they still had to get the last few missions out of the way. So what they'd done was that every time they'd gone to the International Space Station, it would have to do like a flip so that the camera could see if there was anything wrong with the heat shield. And I just remembered something as well, right? So when Columbia had launched, there was a woman who'd been watching the footage, and she said to her superior, like, there's a big clump of foam that's just come off and hit that heat shield. So they kind of knew before it even happened, before the whole thing disintegrated.
The guy was just sitting there. Fuck it.
But they had no tools to, even if there was something wrong, there was nothing they could have done about it. They didn't have the tools on the orbiter to fix it. There was nothing they could have done. So it's like they were fucked.
So they have to start training engineers now to go up with space, like astronauts.
Well, the shuttle's done now, but 2005, I think.
Yeah, no, but like the ISS, for example, they've got to have like someone
maybe.
on board.
I don't think it was going to the ISS.
In case like a hole goes in the fucking side of it. You know what I mean?
One of the conditions with the space shuttle moving forward was it could only go to the ISS after that.
Yeah.
Because then they could do all the fixes they needed after that, and they would do that little flip so the camera could see that there was nothing wrong with the heat shield.
Is the ISS visible from the Earth? It's got to be.
I think so, yeah.
It's huge.
You can just see it going past like a light.
Yeah.
And it goes around the Earth like 18 times or something like that. I think it was Chris...
and there's going to be people out there who's like, it's not real.
Maybe it isn't real. No, I'm joking. I'm trying to appease the other audience members that we have.
But you can see it. You can actually see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Come on now. Come on, people.
But and then the last space shuttle mission was 2011. Anyway, that was a hell of a tangent about space shuttles there.
What was the 2011 space shuttle?
Endeavour, Atlantis, it was one of those. But after that, they just stopped the space shuttle because like Barack Obama or whoever had like signed off on it and said, right, we're stopping this in 2011. So anytime that the Americans, this hasn't aged too well, anytime the Americans want to go to space, to the ISS, they have to use one of the Soyuz rockets that the Russians use.
Really?
But I don't know if that's since changed now because you've got Elon Musk and you've got Jeff Bezos and you've got Richard Branson.
Motherfucking fuck, you've got the Chinese.
Yeah.
Like quite a lot of countries are space savvy.
I just had a random thing pop in my head. I remember seeing like documentary footage of when they were building the British, they were digging a hole, the French and the British, they were digging the British Channel. And there's that footage of when they finally meet your hands and they're just shaking hands, the French and the British. Like, oh, it's good to see you. Hey, you're digging a hole as well?
What made you think of that?
I don't know. I was just thinking about like images in my head popping in of like the Russians and the Chinese
And
getting...
the French have a...
There's a European Space Agency, so I don't know how that works out. And they got the Indian one as well. No, the reason why it popped into my head was because I was thinking about like when you see footage of like the Chinese and the Russians and all that getting on the ISS and all shaking hands and hugging. Up here we're friends.
And they're technically all American. They're all like,
yeah.
hey, Mark. Hey, Steve.
I love it every time you see footage of someone on the ISS on like Facebook or something like that, and you just get like a whole comment thread of people arguing about the way her hair's up. It's like, there's no way.
You can see the zip line in the back. Look, he's being held up by a harness.
Yeah, I've seen better effects than Inception. Gordon
the green screen's peeling off behind him.
But another impressive thing as well was the Voyager missions. Yeah. Voyager 1 and 2. So they launched in 1977. There's a documentary that I was watching that I really recommend if anyone's into this. It's called The Farthest. It came out in 2017. You could watch it on YouTube for free, and now it's not on YouTube, so I had to pay £3.49 to rent it for 2 days.
Worth it though. I bet it was worth it.
It was worth it because I was between a rock and a hard place. I had two options. I could either rent it for $3.49 or I could buy it for $5.99.
What did you do?
I rented it.
What we should do about it?
Well, if I want to watch it again.
Was it worth $5.99?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to watch it again and again and again. You know what I mean? I'll probably go through this documentary.
But them sort of documentaries you can forget about, and then in 2 years' time, clock it and be like, ooh.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to watch this again.
Yeah.
So the Voyager was fascinating. So I think it was during Nixon's term before he resigned that he signed off on it. He said send 2 of them because these mathematicians got together and they realized that once every 178 years, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are in perfect alignment. So it's not going to happen again. So that it's been 50 years since the Voyager mission started, and so we'll still look at another 120 years before that window of opportunity comes up again, where you can just get these orbiters to just slingshot off each planet to keep getting the momentum. It'll be interesting to see if the human race is still around at this point. Might be the robots, but it'll be interesting to see where their technology's at in 120 years from now when they try and do that again. I mean, who knows? They might have already colonized the whole solar system by this point. Just make sure you're like fist away from it, mate. All right?
Yes, sir.
That's cool. It's just like me, like the audio. It's like, I don't give a fuck. Just turn it up. You know what I'm saying? If you can hear them, turn it up.
Exactly, man. Like they've
and use headphones. Who the hell just stares at? Sorry, Dad, but you get some headphones, right? Stop just staring at a phone. Like,
is that what he does? He just watches it out loud.
Son, I can't hear Sean too well. Well, that was my fault. I'm sorry. That was my fault. But get some headphones.
I love your impression of your dad. It's fucking spot on.
One time, right, we're driving up to. I know I've told you the story before, but we have new fans now. So I'm driving up to Glasgow with my dad when I was about 19, and we stop off at somewhere around Preston, maybe Cumbria, and they got weird accents up there. And my dad he's a very gregarious man, you know. And
shout out Barry. Barry Scott.
Oh, Barry Scott. Oh, yeah.
I was a young gregarious lad.
I was very gregarious. Kid, isn't
I was young and
yeah, because he's freeze.
Gay?
Who's gay? Don't say gay. And
7 days.
Madden, who? I'll come down there and kill you myself.
Marcy Gray, I have a fantastic outfit for Cody.
So, fuck. I can't remember what we're talking about now.
Voyager.
Well, we talk about Voyager, but there was another little side tangent that I want to talk about real quickly.
Yeah, I've got loads of things.
Oh, my dad. Yeah, so me and my dad, right? We're going into, we're driving up to Glasgow to see the tribe, the main tribe, the Pike Tribe. And we stop off and he starts making small talk with this girl who's working at the kiosk. And he goes, "Oh, hen, I like your accent." And the girl went, "What, mine? I didn't think I had one." I was like, clearly you've never fucking left Cumbria, lady.
You've never left this patch of fucking...
You've never left this little chef. But yeah, the Voyager missions were amazing. Like it was a good documentary as well. And there's so many brains getting involved. It's like, how can you do all these hundreds of thousands of people involved, whether it be at a small scale or large scale, all these brainy people between them, and then some nerd on Facebook's going to deny that any of that's real. It's
that's like the thing about what we're speaking about right now. There's going to be that guy.
But how can you deny that work ethic? I mean, I'll get more into it when I start.
Rabbit hole was YouTube. That's what happens, man.
So with the Voyager mission, so it launches in 1977, and there was a small window between Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 launching. It was like a couple of weeks or something like that, and it nearly went wrong as it was leaving the atmosphere because something went wrong. I can't remember specifically what it was, but it almost ran out of fuel because you need a certain amount of velocity to get out of Earth orbit, and it had like it went off for another 3 seconds, and then it cut out, the fuel cut out, but it was 3 seconds enough, because otherwise it wouldn't have made it to Jupiter and the sun would have pulled it back in.
Damn.
So that's how close it was. And then 2 years later, it gets to Jupiter. The images start coming through, and the guy on the documentary is saying that NASA take pictures in black and white for better quality, and then they just fill in the colors themselves. It's like the same with dinosaurs. Up until very recently, we didn't actually know what color dinosaurs were. We only have these fossils to go off of. So everything you see in Jurassic Park's a fucking lie. They had to figure out themselves what color those things were, and it's only recently that people, like geologists or whoever, and archaeologists, started coming out the woodwork saying.
Recently, we found one in the Sahara Desert.
Well, not even that. It's only recently that geologists and archaeologists started saying, like, oh, actually they had feathers. Dinosaurs had feathers.
They weren't scaly. They were feathery.
Yeah. And then Jurassic World comes out.
Feathery
Like,
T-Rex.
Yeah. Like
Rawr.
yeah. Yeah.
Pillow fight.
So Voyager. Girls just wanna have fun. T-Rex gone wild.
with a pillow.
T-Rex. Oh, fucking why not? Fuck the Voyager. My forehead's sweating. I'm trying not to. Fuck you, Voyager. I'll probably do the Voyager.
Voyager 1 and 2. Fuck you, Reagan.
Yeah, I want to talk about Reagan.
Mate, why did he try to build a laser beam to deflect fucking
A laser beam.
What douche?
But no, actually, Reagan, right? I actually liked the speech he did
What
in
did
the
they call
way
it? The Star Wars project as well.
the Alan Parsons project. All right, Darth. All right, zip it.
Oh Jesus! What a bunch of lads they were.
No, but you know what? Like, criticize Reagan all you will, right? But that speech he did, or whoever wrote the speech for him, in the wake of the Challenger disaster, like he did. I can't remember the speech, but I'll be paraphrasing. He said something along the lines of, "They went up into the skies, into the heavens,
I'm sorry,
and touched the hand of God." I'm like, oh, that's so fucking good.
I've had an edible. It's like pretty kicking in now, you know. So like,
Right.
my words are eluding me now.
my grammar's slipping.
My grammar's going. Oh my.
But yeah, so Voyager. So 2 years later, 1979, it starts getting up to, I think it's Voyager 1 starts making it to Jupiter, and NASA starts getting images sent back to them in black and white, and they had to estimate the amount of radiation that was going around Jupiter because they knew it was going to be a lot. And they basically used, just to save on money, what they call aluminum foil, tinfoil, right? They wrapped tinfoil around all the components and all that to make sure that the radiation just didn't overload the systems and wipe out and destroy the mission. And it gets to Jupiter, and they had audio footage of that radiation. It was like, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, I know that's funny, but it's like, that's a lot of radiation. That's a fuck ton of radiation.
Sounds like a microwave. There's aliens cooking a rustlers. That's what it was. That's where we got the recipe for rustlers from, Jupiter.
Thank you, Voyager, for all that rustlers.
Thank you.
It's like 30% meat.
That's why I love living here. You don't have a microwave, so everything's fresh.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it goes around Jupiter and all that, and I think Voyager 2 comes along. So some interesting things about Jupiter's planets, right? So, I mean, there's tons and tons of moons of Jupiter, but I'll just talk about 4 in particular, right? So the first 2 were Callisto and Ganymede, and they were just hammered with craters, very similar to our own moon. It's just been hammered over time.
It's actually pronounced Ganymede.
Oh, thank you, Sean. Thank you.
No problem.
No, I appreciate that. And they're just been hammered by debris and asteroids and all that because they're the furthest ones out from Jupiter's pool. But then you get closer to Jupiter, and then you start getting moons like Io and Europa.
Where's Titan?
Titan's Saturn.
Right.
So
I'm glad
you got Europa, and so these are the interesting candidates. Is Europa, and I keep popping every time I say Europa. Right. So Europa and Io. So Europa's covered in like 100 in ice, and it's like 100 kilometers thick. And there could be, I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but I think that it's salt water underneath.
Isn't that
the
like
ice.
the best possibility for life in our solar system?
Potentially, because I think water seems to be a hot topic for
But isn't
life
there
and
another
organism.
moon?
Which is Io. So Io has has active volcanoes on it because it's so close to Jupiter that it's essentially been squeezed and pulled by this gas giant, and it causes like these massive eruptions. And there was a woman by the name of Linda Morabito So she was going through the pictures and all that, the early pictures, and she sees like this other planet behind Io, and she's like, what is that? And then she realizes it was like a 200-kilometer high burst of
lava.
Lava. And she was the first person to discover volcanism outside of Earth. What a fucking discovery.
Did she win an award for that?
Yeah, she did. I don't know if it was like a Nobel Prize or something like that, but she won a big award for that.
Like, when you hear shit like that, like people getting awarded prizes for stuff like that, you're like, oh, that's like...
Oh, mate, that shit will be plastered all over her LinkedIn.
That's a deserving award, you know, when you actually fucking discover
a little purple glow on the screen, and you're like, that's a volcano. I mean, someone 2 days later would have figured it out, but you know what I'm saying? Fair play to her. I'm not taking that away from her.
It's like when I hear fucking Will Smith getting awarded the Oscar. I haven't seen the film, to be fair, but like
King Richard. I think about tennis coach, innit?
Let's just brush over the subject. We might as well get out of the way, innit? The Will Smith slap.
Fake or not. I kind of want to talk about Voyager, but carry on.
Yeah, we'll just drift back on
Will Smith.
What do you think of it? Because we're gonna...
Oh, mate, you know what? Again, it goes to the whole moon landing thing. It's like, half of me's like, it was fake, and half of it was like, maybe he's just having a difficult time and fucked up. That's the way I look at it. Because if it was fake, then it wouldn't surprise me, because Hollywood's so desperate now because they're losing their relevancy. There was a time not too long ago when Hollywood A-listers or just celebrities of that same clan were so revered because...
you got to think back to Independence Day. That's like the tippity top of Will
just
Smith's
pre-social media, you're seeing like celebrities, you only ever saw them in magazines or scripted interviews or what they call press junkets. You never really got to see them. And now you've got Twitter, now you've got Instagram, now you've got all these social media platforms. They can just spew out their thoughts, and it doesn't go down well most of the time, because you realize just how disconnected these human beings are, how secluded their lifestyle is, because it's surrounded by agents and yes men and publicists and accountants and lawyers constantly saying, you're amazing, you're the best. You know what I mean?
That's the biggest problem, yes men, isn't it?
Yeah. So they have a very disconnected view of actual reality of the working people, the regular Joes of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime they spew their opinion on social media, we're just looking at like, what? Or anytime they give a little preachy little talk at the Oscars or the BAFTAs or whatever, like save the world and all that. And it's like, oh, I understand the sentiment, but who the fuck are you to tell me I need to sort my shit out? You're the one going around the world in a private jet.
I don't think the question is whether it was fake or not. The question is why, innit? Like, why did that happen?
Oh, because like
I get the joke, I get all that shit, but like,
so
why was it allowed to happen? Why was it allowed to continue sitting down?
Because think about it, right? Again, this is us exploring the possibility that this was staged, right?
Because I hate, that's fake, that's real. Like, why? Right. Why is the question, innit?
Right, so here's why it could be, why it could have been faked. Because people weren't watching the Oscars last year. People weren't watching the Oscars the year before. It sort of tanked. I think...
Yeah, but no one's going to watch the Oscars next year.
Don't forget what's been happening over the last 2 years with these lockdowns, or as Tim Warner calls it, medicinal martial law, right? During those lockdowns, people are sat at home. People are going a little bit loopy. People are not themselves. There's this whole existential crisis that we experienced as one. Because that first week or two of lockdown, say what you will about it, but there was a very small time where we were all united in our dread, in our terror. Some people, kind of got out of it quicker than others, but there was that small moment where united and there was like 1% of people who were like, no, this is bullshit from the get-go, right? Yeah. But there was, for a very small window of like, say, 2 days, even my own dad, who doesn't fucking trust anything that comes out of the mainstream media, even he for a second was like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, mate, I was the same.
When your parents say, I don't know, that's when it's time to shit your pants.
My brain, like you say, for 2 days, I was like, but then I was like, those news conferences total fucking changed my mind. I was like,
yeah. But anyway, the reason why I bring that up is because these celebrities were in a similar boat to us in the sense that they're kind of stuck at home with no jobs, no gigs, and they're just going to sit on social media and engage in bullshit because, and it kind of made the disconnect even bigger between the regulars of the world and these A-listers. So Hollywood is now dying, and it needs something to get it talking about Hollywood. Why not have? And again, this is just us exploring the possibility of being fake. That would be the motivation behind that.
Who was the guest we had on? When you were talking about the Ben Shapiro starting his own,
That was Mitch.
yeah, and he
Burrow.
said Hollywood and that has so much. I think he's a little bit right, you know, because they do have a lot of money. So I don't think it will ever die completely.
Oh no, it can die. But again, like the banks, it will just get bailed out by the government, by the taxpayer money.
'Cause it's so lucrative, man. It's like one of those things that are like a constant.
These mics are so sensitive. I apologize. My swallowing, the flexing of my esophagus is on mic. I apologize.
Yeah. But what was I saying?
We talk about Hollywood and the whole.
Mitch is right. Like
influence
it
of
will
it.
never die, but people are starting to consume their own media. They watch what they enjoy now more than TV and series and long form. Even Netflix has the 10 episode format.
But the thing is that even when Hollywood,
bite size,
Hollywood,
even I'm falling into the trap.
well, Hollywood's going to die anyway. That's inevitable. But what will take its place will just be another iteration of it. Just
And like you said, prosumers. It will be a lot of prosumers doing their own.
well, this I'll mention my book a little bit just because, during the lockdown when I started doing the final draft of it. You okay?
Pardon me. Yeah.
Oh, you're having a little burp.
Yeah.
I started writing the final draft of my book in 2020 because I had all that time. Like my mum once said to me, "Be careful what you wish for." And I remember for years leading up to it, I was like, every time I was walking into work, if it was a corporate place, big New Look logo, or if it was a Sainsbury's logo or a Haven logo, all the places I've worked at, there was always those thoughts when I get to work and I'd just think, I wish something would happen so this would all stop. I actually said that just so I could have time to pursue my dreams because, I did get clever with it. I kind of realized, I'm in the Matrix. I'm in this world where a lot of my
turned out to be a zombie apocalypse. Like
I don't know, mate. Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that.
You're not writing a story during that.
Maybe. Depends on how keen you are.
Maybe you're in Post Malone's bunker.
Post Malone. Chapter 1. The zombies came from every direction.
Thanks for letting me write my story in your house, man. Thank you. You're a legend. Just keep the door locked.
Post-apocalyptic. So I started playing on this idea of the prosumer because it was a concept I'd learned a few years prior. And I was thinking it really kind of encouraged me to, because again, like I said, so many of us for a small window of time had realized we don't know. I had my dad's mentality. We don't know. So why not just take a guess at what I think is going to happen? Some of the predictions I made with Fauxville, I made this little joke. The Spike character in Chapter 5 in the flashback says as he's dealing with the ANCAPs, I don't want to give too much away because it's pretty graphic as well. Mm-hmm. So out of context, it might put people off.
That church scene, no spoilers, but...
Oh, no, that's Chapter 7.
I know, I'm just mentioning it so we get people excited. There's a church scene where...
I actually went to a church and took photographs before writing
that's fucking research.
Yeah, so I'll tell you about that in a minute. I'll take you there one day. It's a place called Little Breedy. But anyway, lovely place. I'm taking a guess because I don't know. So I guessed that based on this thing in Chapter 5, it was just a joke. It wasn't even a prediction. It was just a joke that's kind of become true. Mm-hmm. Where Spike says to these guys, he's pouring gasoline on them, and he says, a gallon of this will set you back more than a bottle of Maclaro Adami whiskey or something like that, which is a really expensive whiskey. I can't remember the full name of it, and I think it's Italian, so I'm not pronouncing it right. But then inflation happens. Oh, I have one puff. Inflation happens, and petrol gas goes through the roof. So you know what I mean. So that's one example of something that I've seen in, because I was just throwing shit at the wall just because I was having fun with writing. It was my escape from what was going on in reality, and I think it's gone out. That's a sign from God. No more from me.
Yeah.
Thank you, God.
Pass the light.
And what was the other thing? So it was all based around this whole prosumerism thing. The idea that, because I'd studied quite recently, just before the first lockdown happened in January of 2020, I started reading a book by a man named J. Michael Oliver called New Libertarianism, Anarcho-Capitalism. And that is... I took loads of notes on this. I spent 3-4 days just taking notes on this book. I was hooked. I was like, this is everything I need right now to build this part of the plot. And I kind of thought that would be a thing that would happen in the wake of the lockdowns, because people would turn their back on the government especially in America, and they would start focusing more on a anarchist state driven by pure capitalism. Their philosophy is based on an Ayn Rand philosophy known as objectivism.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of focuses on the individual having the power to not necessarily manipulate this reality, but to exploit it in order to benefit from it. You know, capitalism, entrepreneurialism, the individual would become the master of their own fate. That was kind of the basis of anarcho-capitalism.
Kind of like a science versus faith, kind of.
Almost, but really science is focused on technological advancement in order to generate more profit. That's the motivation behind it. The motivation to gain profit kind of molds everything about these individuals in this society, where it's like they're going to be a good person, because if they're not, it's going to affect their bottom line as a businessman or an entrepreneur. Yeah. If I'm a jerk in an anarcho-capitalist society where there's no state to support me, to provide me with state money, like the dole or universal credit, if that don't exist as a safety net, and it's just down to me as a private individual, as an individual in this privatized society, I have to feed myself. I have to, I have to fund myself. Otherwise I will die. Yeah. That's kind of the mentality of it. So that would shape your morals. It's not about a judicial system or like a commandments or a script to tell you how to be. Otherwise you're going to get fucking thrown in jail. It's like, yeah.
Everyone's stuck. Well, not everyone, but
if I'm selling coffee beans, right, in an anarcho-capitalist society, 100,000 other people are selling coffee beans because there's no regulations, there's no rules, there's no.
Yeah.
So how do I make myself better than those 100,000 people? How am I going to sell the most coffee beans? I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to be altruistic. I'm going to have a good reputation because I'm getting all the 5 stars and people are coming my way and I'm making a lot of fucking money on these coffee beans. That's why I'm going to be a good person, because my bottom line depends on it. Mm-hmm. And if my bottom line fails, I fail. That's just the theory of anarcho-capitalism. Whether I believe in it or not, I don't know. I believed in it more in 2020 when I was learning about it, but I kind of got a bit too indoctrinated with it because it was fueled. My pro-anarcho-capitalist stance was further motivated as I wrote the book and as I saw the pandemic go on and on and on. Sorry, my heart's going because I'm speaking so fast. 1 second. Even the Shaw mic's picking up. Like, these are good mics.
It's just going, shippy.
But just while I have a drink, just tell me what you think on that.
Well, is it a viable way to live, to survive, to keep the world running? Maybe, but there's going to be people always that are going to depend on someone, so someone's going to always make a profit off of that. So it would anarcho-capitalism survive still? You'd have to force it.
The problem is that the transition of it would be so dramatic. It'd be so bad for so many people. Think about all the people that are dependent.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like,
there's only
someone will go off the anarcho-capitalism route and do their own thing. Always, there's always going to be that.
It would have to be through revolutionary means.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
There's no democratic process, because another philosophy and form of government that I explore in the novel is democratic socialism, which derives from the British Fabian Society. The idea is that their version of socialism isn't implemented through revolutionary means, but through democratic means. So I think that's I think that's just a bullshit term for, like, it doesn't work.
You're gonna get those.
But in my novel Fauxville, it works to a degree across Europe.
Well, okay, it's part of the story, because it's got to work, and you can't argue with someone's novel. You know what I mean? In a way, in a sense, because it's their vision of the future or whatever.
In my novel, Europe is a democratic socialist technocracy. There is a hierarchy, but it's a very small hierarchy, and it consists of technocrats, scientists, educators, because it stems from the idea of a post-industrial society. That's what I'm thinking of. So a post-industrial society. So you have 3 sectors of the economy. You have the primary sector, which is the bringing in raw materials like wheat and farming, agriculture. That's the primary sector. The secondary sector is the distribution of those materials. Lorry drivers, delivery drivers.
Yeah.
Secondary sector, right? And then there's the tertiary sector. There's a fourth one as well, but just to keep it simple, I'll give you the three version. And the tertiary sector of this is science and education, IT, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
When the tertiary becomes the predominant form of income and what keeps the society going and advancing it, that is a post-industrial society.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of how we live now.
Yeah, but 30 years from now,
more advanced. Yeah.
And that is what Europe is in my novel. But basically, 3/4 of the world is anarcho-capitalism. But just to keep it simple, I just kept the antagonist of the story, or one of the antagonists of the story, United States. They were the ones kind of pushing the anarcho-capitalists, because in order for it to sustain itself, it has to keep consuming. There was one review I got from a woman who specializes with her career. Her job involves working with mental health in adults, disabilities and whatnot. And she hit me up saying, like, that's the most fucking accurate portrayal I've ever seen of dissociative identity disorder, because that's what I studied for.
Because a lot of the world would see America as evil.
Yeah, and it's funny, cause they come across as they're being narrated as, they're being presented as evil, but I'm actually, at that time, I was pro anarcho-capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't that there were a few examples where they are demonstrated as being malicious, but there are other times where it's just, they're 20 years into this now. They've become that. That's who they are. They are these capitalist, productive, black and white kind of get it done kind of mentality.
Such a ruthless way to live, though, isn't it?
Yeah. But I was pro anarcho-capitalism at the time, and I even like introduced it in a few short stories in the novel. The doorbell story that takes place in, I described it as a few years after the pandemic ended. I think that's how I introduced it as. So it was like 2025, the mid 2020s.
Yeah.
This woman's held hostage by a doorbell operator because I wrote this story around the time that cancel the police hashtag started gaining momentum, was trending, as well as the George Floyd stuff. So I threw shit at the wall again and thought, I imagine that anarcho-capitalism gets introduced because the police are defunded and private security firms move in that are attached to doorbell operators, that are attached to, you know what I mean? These sort of militant security forces are private organizations. They replace the police after they've been defunded. So that was my little hint of, this is how they became anarcho-capitalists, because I don't go into details. It's not until 2/3 into the novel that I tell that little short story that gives you a bit of lore.
Yeah.
That says, defund the police happened, private police came along, like your Amazons, your fucking whoever runs Ring, whoever rings all the other doorbell places, you know, they've got their own.
Ding dong.
I called it Ding Dong because it's all about satire. So, yeah, I called it Ding Dong. By the way, let me just finish this off with, if you like any of the stuff that we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes, whether it be anarcho-capitalism, whether it be, we haven't even spoke about AI yet, the singularity. But anyway, Fauxville is available on Amazon. Link in description.
Yeah, link always in the description.
It's my first novel. It took me 5 years to write. Buy it or read it on Kindle.
Maybe we'll
audiobook coming.
in a little.
Yeah.
A little
audiobook coming in the next 6 to 12 months. Just focusing on the podcast right now. I'm not even.
Who are you getting to do the audio?
I'm just going to hire an actor.
Fair enough.
But if the podcast goes well, my reward to myself is that I will get an audiobook made for Fauxville. I might even get my dad to do it.
It might up the sales, you know.
Yeah, I think
because a lot of people do audiobooks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it might increase sales a little bit.
So I'm getting the weed shakes. I'm not like, if you're wondering why I'm trembling, it's just the weed.
The weed shakes?
The weed shakes, yeah. So for some reason.
How do you think I feel when you were talking about fucking anarcho-capitalism? I have to say it slowly, otherwise I'll fuck up. You finished and you're going to drink your water and you're like, right, while I have a sip of my water, let me know what you think about that. And I had to take a deep breath because I was sitting here like
with the shakes.
No, because the edible is pretty much like fully in.
It reminds me of the Big Les show. It's
and
like
it's on the video program. I'm sitting here like that while you're talking. Like I was trying not to deep breath either. I was like,
that's okay, man.
Then you're like, and then you're like thingy. So I had to sit up like, Well.
Well, I'm glad you asked.
And actually, the stuff started coming out, so I'm glad I didn't show off. So, there you go.
You just like, I could just hear the window. I could hear a fax machine going off in your head.
No, but I've had like, because I'm still trying to remember these things I've got in my brain. I don't want to lose them. So like,
No, it's cool, mate. Like again, I wasn't thinking of going down that deeper rabbit hole about the book and all that. But one other thing I didn't really touch upon, which kind of plays into a little bit with like space exploration, where we think it's going. We didn't even finish off the Voyager, but you know what? Just go watch the documentary The Farthest. You know what I mean? Why have me give you the shit audiobook version of it? One of the other books I read to research it was by Ray Kurzweil. It was called The Singularity is Near. He did a TED talk that was quite interesting, and he spoke about the singularity. So the definition, there's two definitions. Obviously, the singularity being the center of a black hole, where all that gravity is just, everything's just collapsed into the singularity. I don't want to go down the theoretical physicist shit just yet, because black holes are its own thing. But the other definition...
Save this for the next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll come back in a week. I'll be like, I've read 3 books on it. But not really. Probably 1.
No, but like this... You ever heard of the Black Knight satellite?
No.
You need to do some research on that. I won't go into it right now because it's a fucking another rabbit hole, but there's like a few things. There's a few things, yeah.
Yeah, so the singularity I'm talking about is what Ray Kurzweil hypothesized, which was the moment in time where machine evolution kind of surpasses our own evolution, our own capabilities. But it's not just about the machines. Like Ray Kurzweil looks at it as human beings as well. We both transcend together as one. We kind of we unite, a unification between human biology and machines. And what we will be capable of will be mind-blowing. So he sees it happening in 2050, I think it is. That's
when we like advance again.
When the singularity happens, where machines and humans merge.
Right. Okay.
And there's different ways in which this can happen, right? But I only really focused on the negative, because he's quite hopeful with it. I tried to look at it from a more negative impact. And it takes place just before the singularity event, the whole Pee-wee thing, the AI that grows stronger and stronger. It's funny, I had this juxtaposition in the novel where anarcho-capitalism spreads across all societies like a virus, as does Pee-wee, the artificial intelligence, through the minds of people. It's funny. A virus against a virus. One's a cultural virus and the other is a artificial intelligent virus. It's a cool little juxtaposition, isn't it?
Yeah.
And mental health. Look at how David Miller manifests through Greg Steele towards the tail end of the book in the simulation.
The Andy Steele podcast.
Brought to you by coffee.
Sorry, man. That was a fucking sick impression as well. I got it spot on there.
That was good. Shout
out Andy Steele.
Andy Steele. I was on his podcast, yeah. And
mate, see, when your podcast ends with him, it ends and he says something like, "Oh, fuck off," or something like. You have to skip right to the end and listen.
Oh, I might not have heard that part.
It's not him.
Yeah. He's in the voiceover.
Like, yeah.
And he goes, "Now, fuck off."
Yeah.
That was funny.
It caught me off guard. I was like, "What the fuck?" Oh, Andy Steele podcast. Anyway, sorry. I just love his voice.
Yeah, we'll get him on at some point, and we'll do a deep dive on his life story, because it's an interesting one, no doubt. Very interesting individual. He has a lot to say, and he can match me on an intellectual level. You know what I mean? He's a smart guy. But when I can get a fucking word in.
He seems like the guy who has low nipples.
Yeah, and I think we all do once we get older. You know what I mean? That chest starts to sag.
I'm joking. That's a burnt face man joke. Low nipples, piss lips. Them insults still hold up.
Anyone that didn't grow up in the 2000s isn't going to get the reference. Anyone that didn't.
But like, how often do you hear the insult? Piss lips.
Or your low nipples. I heard it a lot. I heard it a lot around 03
Oh
to
yeah,
05.
when we were younger and that, and all saying it. But like round here, if you just said to someone, "Oh, you look like you have low nipples," they'll be like, they'll get self-conscious because they don't know what the fuck you're on about.
That's
like,
funny. I love that sort of.
I love going into like people's lives randomly and just being like, "Oh, like, you look like you have low nipples," like. And they'll be like, for ages. Like,
I think people these days would be more confused and baffled than insulted. They'll be like,
yeah, that's what it is. It's not an insult.
You go up to some old guy with like a little grey tuft in his chest, and you'd be like, got low nipples.
The only people that would get insulted by it is those like big, Like, low nipples, yeah,
Yeah.
right. I've been working out for 10 years. My pecs are solid as a fucking rock, man.
It's like when I saw I can't remember his name, when I saw him in the co-op, and he was like, "You slimmed down, Dan."
Oh, what?
No name, the anonymous crackhead. Yeah, but exactly. You don't know his name. I don't know his name. It begins with a T.
Do we want to know his name? Should we just have this as like an ongoing thing, like where
I
we just
don't know.
never find out his name?
We never find out his name. It would be in the comment section.
Just every time we bump into him, like, you're right, just never ask for his name ever. Just you're right, and
hopefully,
like,
you be with someone.
and like eventually he'll be like, why you never say my name? Like you'd be like, I don't know, I just don't care for it. Don't care for your name, mate.
Yeah.
But it's I don't want to know. I just like it. I just like it as this. All right, T.
Yeah. I don't know why I brought him up, but I don't know his name.
I think just call back in it. Call back to the first episode back
Yeah.
in it. Might as well.
So I didn't get to do a little deep dive on the Singularity event. So I wanted to explore ideas like transhumanism, where humans and machine become one. There's a brief example of that, like neural implants, and then you see people like Elon Musk proposing these ideas, these neural links.
Monotone.
Monobrow. Brought to you by Monobrow.
Who's a distinct person that you remember had a monobrow? Can you remember?
Me, when I look in the mirror,
Yeah, I do. as
I
well.
look at it, I'm like,
But
Jesus
it's not an obvious,
Christ.
like,
I get the old Gillette out and
Bronwyn.
just go over it once. Oh, fucking remember her. Don't say her name.
Fuck it, mate. She's never gonna watch this. Ever.
Mate, you'd be surprised.
Maybe in 10 years' time we've got that.
There were people I don't even, like, would never think watched this podcast. I had someone do
Professor
the whole...
Loomis. Carnage, I think his name is. Shout out, mate.
So, before I get too high, real quickly,
This is just a cigarette, mate. Don't worry.
Oh, have I been smoking a cigarette this whole time?
No, no,
'Cause-
you were smoking a joint.
And that was a
I've
cigarette.
just rolled this.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Don't worry. I haven't tricked you.
And anyway, I was not meant to smoke anymore because I had that little divine intervention.
What?
Remember that divine intervention where it went out? And I was like, no more for me. It's a sign from God.
Yeah, no, that was like pretty much the end of the.
So I'm like, yes, smoke some more.
Hey, let's get fucked up. You want
Let's
an
get
edible?
fucked up on no, I didn't.
I'm joking. I'm just coming down now. I'm like seeing the light again.
All right, so yeah, it's up there and over there.
Alright. I remember, right? I won't say his name because you might want to not know people who done this, but he took magic mushrooms. I don't know why I just said that. Magic mushrooms. Oh,
Psilocybin.
the mushrooms. Anyway, he took mushrooms, right? And he said he went home. He was at a party and that. And he went home, lay on his bed, and he said they weren't really kicking in. He was like, he was deciding to go sleep. But then all of a sudden, he seen feet like shadows on his wall dancing, like telling him to come here and that. And he was like, oh, when he started dancing in his room towards these shadows, then he stopped himself. He was like, I got closer in that, and I felt like a weird force in my body and shit. I don't know where I'm going with the story. I just thought the dancing bit was like, come here.
Remember that time when we had that teacher come in? Not that teacher. We had this kind of like anti-drug campaigner come into our assembly when we were in year 8. And she was like a young man. Took acid.
She was like a young man.
No.
That's what you just said.
No, I'm high. I don't know what this small man was saying to me. In
My
Borat.
name's Chef.
I do not understand what the small man was saying.
Yeah.
But I cannot stop thinking about Pamela Anderson's anus. So this woman came into our assembly, and we were in like year 8, and she was like, "Oh yeah, this young lad took mushrooms or acid or LSD. I don't know which one it was, but he hallucinated so badly, he was tripping so bad that he thought his hand was an orange and started peeling it. And naturally, as children, we just
Laughed.
We laughed because
our asses
we weren't. You got to bear in mind when we were at school, you never wanted to really show any emotion that would make you stick out. It wasn't really till like we got older that we kind of embraced that we were kind of the part of the hierarchy of the school because we were year 10, year 11 by this point. So we were more free to be.
Whenever you're in year 11 and you get the odd delinquent year 10 that thinks they're solid as a fucking rock, but like the year 11 is the hierarchy.
It's like our natural response when there was like 120 plus of us all crammed together in that one assembly. Our natural reaction is to not be like, oh my God. You know what I mean? We get nervous and we laugh.
Yeah, and if you're like...
And then she thinks, right? And then she says, oh, you think that's funny? She gets quite triggered. Do you think that's funny? Right? And then as a grown man, I'm like, well, kind of, yeah. I'm 13. I don't want to know about this shit. I'm not going to We're not being offered LSD at 13 years of age. Not in this shit town with a population of 50,000 people. They're all in the pub. We're not allowed in pubs.
I was in pubs. My mum took me in pubs.
Oh yeah,
but the
lounge.
babysitter got me high when I was like 12.
Oh, you know what? Fuck everything I just said. All right.
She might have been. She might have had a point, Daniel.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is like,
if I didn't have a crackhead babysitter, I wouldn't have.
Right, you're an anomaly. There was like 8 children in that class that would be neglected. Right?
I wasn't neglected. I just had a shit babysitter that taught us how to roll a joint at a young age.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'm sorry, Granny, if you watch this.
There was like 8% of this. There was like 8% of the people present in that room that needed to hear what she was saying, but I didn't like her attitude. Rather than
her attitude fucking stank.
It sucked because it's like, hang on a minute, don't get mad. Tell us why.
Get even.
Yeah, don't get mad, get even. That's my mum's philosophy in life. Did she say that to you? Is that why you're saying it?
No, it's just because you said don't get mad.
Oh, you said gay. Okay. I thought she'd give you some...
She might have said it one time in passing. I don't know. I forget. Like, my short-term memory at the minute.
The point I'm trying to make is this woman's attitude fucking sucked. It's like, come down to our level and then tell us what you're trying to tell us. Preach to us then. Come down to our level. That's why I always like the teachers that were capable of doing that. The people like Jerry. Funny enough, I was thinking about Barry Humphries today.
Mr. Humphries.
He was my form tutor.
Did you actually like him?
In hindsight, I was kind of cool with him. Yeah, I know. He had a lazy eye. But this is a positive thing about this man, right?
I never ever had him, so I don't have an opinion.
Right, so I had this man as my form tutor from year 7 up to year 11, right? And I actually had respect, and more so now, looking back on it, because I'm like, this man was intelligent. He really fucking tried. Like, in year 7, we had to read a book. That was his policy. For the 20 minutes that we sat in his classroom before we started our lessons for the afternoon, we had to read a book. And I was like, that's a fucking great teacher right there. Mm-hmm. And I read some great stories. Sometimes I read graphic novels. One time I was reading like an adventure book.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was reading an RPG book.
Yeah, you meant to have choose your own.
And you got to have boards and all that. I didn't have the boards. I was just following the story.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And then he started teaching us more things in year 9. He started teaching us about multiculturalism. He called it the melting pot. We drew a big pot on our paper, and we started filling it with different nationalities and different cultures. And I'm like, what a good fucking teacher to teach me that. You know, most form tutors, it's 20 minutes. They don't need to have a lesson plan. They can just put their feet up and be like, watch a DVD for 20 minutes.
I had the greatest form tutor known to man, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, he's a good man as well.
We had a few. We had one in year 7.
So what did he do in form time? Because it was like 20 minutes, wasn't it? 20, 30 minutes. What would he do with you guys?
To be fair, right, he was just a laid-back guy. Let us chat amongst ourselves. As long as there was no fuckery afoot, we were sound.
Fuckery afoot.
We were sound. So, like, he was just got laid back, alright, just do your own thing. It was kind of like one of those dudes, like, if you were having a problem, you go to him and he's like, talk to you on that, like you say, on that level. He wasn't like trying to teach us anything or anything. He actually gave us quite good life lessons as well. He drew like his expenses on the board. Like, he put how much he would get paid, and then he was putting his expenses and stuff, and he was like, well... He
taught me one time, right?
That's a good life lesson.
Yeah,
he was teaching us, like...
I had him as a geography teacher in year 9. And what I admired about, maybe even year 8 as well, what I admired about him is he actually taught us about mid-level buying. So he said that you're not going to buy the most expensive thing, you're not going to buy the cheapest thing because you're worried about the quality of that product potentially. So we mid-buy as a culture mostly.
Yeah, that's how people flip and make money.
And he also taught me about how every time something is like buy one get one free, or you weren't going to buy it, but now it's buy one get one free. You are buying it, so now they've just made a sale.
Yeah, because
they're not at too much of a great loss. In fact, because they've sold 10 times the amount of products they would have sold if it had not been for that
as well. When there's like
rollback or
6 extra free, but if you just buy 2, there's more. If you buy 2,
exactly,
and cheaper as well.
So Mr. Bond taught me about that in geography.
Yeah, he taught me that as well.
And I was like, what a legend. And I remember he was going through some issues with a brain tumor. I think it was. He had a brain tumor, and with 13 years of age, and he'd sit us down and he'd talk us through his ordeal. Like, he opened up to us. He was like, this is what I'm going through. And he made it funny. He had a comedic touch to his story. And we were howling. And I'm thinking, I got all the time in the world for people like him, Barry Humphries, And there were a few other teachers. Jerry.
Remember the time we stayed behind in history? Remember sometimes Miss Thomas would like substitute.
Bore the shit out of us.
And that's what I was gonna say. Remember fucking she's fucking like
she's seen Jesus'
like,
birth certificate.
She was.
I've seen it.
She'd substitute for the teachers. We'd fucking
just hammer her questions.
And then one time you were like asking about her condition, and we were standing there for like a fucking hour, and you were looking at me like she's taking up a fucking lunch break. Like
no, it wasn't that. We'd finished school. Right?
Yeah,
so
that was it. We finished school.
So we finished school at 3:20, and so the way you kind of worked with these substitute teachers, especially like the vets, the veterans, and the fucking.
But we had respect for that. That's why we get.
Yeah, but the reason why you had to time it well. Substitute teachers just want to get fucking paid. That's all they care about. And this is during the Labour government, so they were paid quite handsomely.
Shout out Tony.
Tony.
Gotta get better.
It only gets better. It's just him like. And I love the comments section where the guy said, out of all the pictures they took, they chose this. Just him like.
And it's pure shit quality, man.
Mate, tell you what you will, I watched that one.
That made me vote Labour.
But when the last time I ever voted was in 2019, I voted for Labour because that's what my mum told me to vote for. I'm joking. I'm my own man. No, I just voted Labour. I thought it's a fucking float.
Yeah, I knew they weren't general consensus around Corby.
I knew they weren't.
You still have that in your brain when you leave.
Yeah, I didn't. I knew they weren't going to win, so I just thought, but that's who I'd vote for. So at that time, now I just.
When was that? Like 2010.
19. The only way it works is if it's like if you delegations, but delegations in a way where it's like it's its own society. So like every county is its own society, is its own state, independent of other states. But people argue over that, will cause conflicts. Look at fucking Ireland. Look at the Cornish pasty situation. You know what I mean? Devon and Cornwall at each of us throats over that pasty.
The Cornish pasty is better. No. The Yorkshire. I can't do it. You do a bit of Yorkshire accent. I don't even know that's a Cornish accent. Cornish pasty, is that Cornish? I don't know. But, get off my land.
You're killing my fucking eardrums, mate. So ease up, bro. Ease up.
Turn the volume down. You know what I mean?
No, the volume's fine. No, because it's quieter when you don't listen. Trust me, bro. Trust me.
I can't hear Sean, Daniel.
Yeah. What were we talking about?
I don't know. Did the Cornish?
Oh mate, I remember. Right, I remember. Like, I don't know why. Because I started thinking about Alzheimer's. I started thinking about this.
Alzheimer's. What the fuck?
Memory loss. Forgetfulness. It started getting me thinking about Alzheimer's. So there was this old couple that I used to see this old couple at Asda when I was like 18 years old. There was this old guy.
Just walking up and down the same.
Yeah, there was this old guy just sat there. I want a glass of water. Like he was just shouting out loud.
I shouldn't be laughing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. You crack on, mate. So there was this old guy just sat there. He clearly
crack on, mate. You laugh your fucking ass off. It's Alzheimer's.
So this old guy just sat there and he's just like, I want a glass of water, right? Just really loud. The whole store turning around, looking at each other like, oh, man, it's just a crazy Alzheimer's dude. It's all right. Back to work. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's not a terrorist. It's all right. So, Linda, go back to stacking those shelves.
Crazy ass.
Yeah, go back to stacking shelves, Linda. It's just some Alzheimer's dude who wants a glass of water. No one's helping him. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so anyway, he's just screaming and shouting. That was the first time I met him from a distance. And the second time, right, he's just up against us. He lived right behind Asda. He was in his letterbox. He's like, I can't remember the wife's name. I just call her Marjorie. Like, Marjorie, I'm locked out. I forgot my key. And eventually she'd come out because she had Alzheimer's as well, but she was a little bit less behind. I helped her cross the road one time. This Marjorie, I helped her cross the road because she's old. She's just shuffling along, so I helped her. So, despite the bad, insensitive shit that I've just said, I actually am a good person. I helped Marjorie cross the road. So
I helped old women.
But sorry, I just say real quickly just to wrap this story up.
I helped an old woman across the road once.
All right.
Might have been Marjorie, I don't know. She lived on Pikesley, it might have been.
But these people, they've passed away now, rest in peace. You know what I mean? Yeah, but I don't know when they died. I just know. So I just mentioned it to someone.
I don't think they do either.
So yeah. Anyway, so they were married, like they were old school. Like they'd probably be married until like 20 years old. Until they'd probably been together like 50 years.
They walked the,
yeah.
At what point? Noses when he parted the sea.
At what point do you think they just looked at each other and she was like, Barry, I think we're fucked. You know what I mean? At what point did they both? Because they both had Alzheimer's. They were both going that way together. Something. At what point did they? Oh fuck, that's dark, man. I'm not even gonna think about it.
I know, what the fuck.
Sorry, dude.
What the, mate? I've just been sitting here laughing my fucking dick off, but fucking laughing at fucking.
Yeah.
Dude, but now the impression of you going a glass of water, fucking.
Mate, verbatim.
But yeah, that reminds me actually. It doesn't remind me. I just want to fucking bring up the pro wrestling dude that messaged me.
Go for it.
Fucking I'm in some groups on Facebook and I like share the podcast around, you know, like just to get it out there, and like that's what they're for. That's specifically what the groups are for as well. It's not like people are spamming like subscribe. It's just like put your episode there, describe it a little bit, and then people will either watch it or they fucking won't. You know what I mean? So this guy, I put a clip up. I think it was. Actually, no. I just shared the YouTube link to the group, and like you get the thumbnail that appears, and he private messages me. So he's like, hey dude, what's up? I seen your. I think he must not have watched much of it, like 2 minutes at the most. And he was like, hey, it's such a cool studio and episode and all this and that. And I was like, all right.
By the way, that reminds me, I've got to give a shout out to Van Gogh.
Van Gogh, yeah.
Rack's little furniture removal business, among other things. Van Gogh.
Portland.
It's down there on the bottom right.
Surrounding
Check it
areas.
out, Van Gogh.
Yeah, local business. Removals, house removals, furniture waste. Oh, yeah. Yes. So this guy messaged me talking about his thinking about setting up a podcast. He didn't have a podcast.
Coming soon, Airway special. He follows us and comments on all our shit, so thank you very much, Airway special. Let me know when you.
Your podcast. Yeah, let us know when your podcast drops. It's been about fucking 2 years. You followed us on Instagram. It's been coming soon.
Coming soon.
I'm anticipating it, mate. I am anticipating.
Can't wait. What if it turns out to be like the fucking best thing at the best podcast in the world?
Well, at least we waited for a good thing.
How funny would that be? That'd be awesome.
So anyway, yeah, this dude, I forget his name anyway. I mean, he's a harmless guy. I'm not trashing him or anything. I'm just saying it's a funny story, but. Yeah, so anyway, I was like, yeah, cool, what do you think you would do your podcast on? And he was like, I do wrestling, I do filmmaking, I'm a photographer, I do all sorts of stuff. And I was like, okay, cool, why don't you talk a bit about wrestling and stuff? And he was like, well, actually, I've been training to become a pro wrestler. And I was like, okay, that's random, but cool. I've spoke like 3 sentences to this guy, so cool. I was like, oh, cool, nice, how's that going and that? And I didn't expect to get like fucking 15 files of photos of this man fucking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Different wrestling positions, fucking holding up a fake belt with his crew. Like, I was like, why is this guy sending me? And he's shirtless as well in the mirror, like fucking flexing.
That's funny as
proper
fuck.
Proper Arnie
Man.
style. Like, I was like, holy shit, what the fuck? I abruptly ended the conversation there.
Fair enough, mate.
Because what I've carried on, what else is he going to send me? I don't like unsolicited pictures. Like, I didn't.
Mate, just.
Bit confident in my eyes.
It's a follow at the end of the day, innit?
He didn't even follow us or anything.
Oh, I didn't know. Fuck him then.
Fucking guy, man.
So, I don't know. I kind of like, when it comes to podcasts, and I think you kind of build up an endurance. When we first started out doing the Zoom chats or the Skype chats, I had about an endurance of about 1 hour before I started flagging. And then we built that up to about 110, 120, 130. Yeah. And then we started going to like 145, 150. And it's like, that's kind of where we left off. It's like, I admire people greatly that can keep the energy going for 3 hours. Like, we'll get there eventually. We're on like an hour 45, hour 50 now. But like, I think these days I've got like a 1 hour 50, 2 hour limit. I mean, I feel you. I did the Andy Steele podcast for about 2 hours and 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but I don't know what kept the momentum going. I think it was just...
You didn't get high.
I didn't get high, and the nerves and the anticipation of promoting my book for the first time. Yeah. That just kept me going. And,
but I think it was pretty much about that, wasn't it? So.
Yeah, but now I'd say I'm about 2 hours I got my endurance level up to 2 hours.
We're pretty much there. Yeah, nah, fucking, well, what's this, episode 45, isn't it?
Episode 45.
Do all the usual nice things. Fucking subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Instagram. Buy Daniel's book.
Yeah, Fauxville, Fauxville, for you people that can't spell. I'm not making fun of you. If you can't spell, you can't spell.
Mate, some people can't.
Thing with Amazon is like if you do a Fauxville as 2 separate words, or you put a hyphen, it doesn't come up at all.
Yeah,
so
no, I know.
that's why I'm being very specific about the spelling.
Because when you type it in on your phone, it auto-corrects Fauxville to like a space.
The link's in the description. So
yeah, it'll always be in the description.
Support your local author, your up-and-coming author, indie author. I'm kind of indie. I'm half indie. The other half is a part of Steelbox Publishing, which is part of Donna's thing.
They're going to publish the book.
It's an up-and-coming. They sort of formatted the book for me. They're an up-and-coming indie publishing house. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, man. Peace.
Peace.